Well, it's about 10 to 8. It's quite late and we're getting out for a local wild camp. Just really to get out for the evening and try out a new tent. The Nordisk Telemark 2 lightweight, picked it up used for £210 off eBay. Seems absolutely mint. I've not even pitched it yet, so just gonna take it out for a camp locally, got a little bit of food and stuff, and just have a really good look at the tent and see what it's like. Now I'm lucky that this is very much my local hill. Views right to the north of the Brecon Beacons, the central Brecon Beacons. Just proper South Wales valleys here. There was a little bit of sun earlier. It's an absolutely glorious day, one of those days that make you really glad to be alive. So figured what better way to spend a Friday night than in a new tent on the local hill, just see what it's like, and just enjoy the peace and quiet and the solitude up here. It is a very, very peaceful spot, despite it being near quite a lot of South Wales Valleys towns. So it's only a very, very short walk. It's only about 10 minutes till sunset, so we're just going to get somewhere and just pitch up. Here we are. We're going to pitch up here because it's getting dark. Plenty of views from up here. That's looking north. Now we're looking slightly east, towards over the east. Mun of Twinglass in the distance, one of the highest points locally, 472 metres. And we're not at the highest point, we're about 360 metres. There are some comm towers up there. And there is another hill on the other side, but nowhere to pitch a tent over there, so we're just going to pitch up here and start relaxing. As I said, a new tent tonight, the Nordisk Telemark 2 lightweight. What a tiny little tent. It's a 2-person tent. As you can see, it's extremely small. Nordisk specified rate is 950 grams. Now, it is slightly heavier than that if you have different accessories and stuff, so this external bag, for example, isn't needed. It does pack away into its own pocket, and I think you can take out like the spare bit of pole and the repair patch and stuff to get it down roughly to that weight. But it is extremely compact, extremely small. It's about the same weight as my Lanshan 2 Pro trekking pole tent, but obviously this comes with its own DAC poles and it's completely self-supporting, so you don't need to take any trekking poles with you. £210 I paid on eBay, including postage, used, and when I took it out and had a look at it, it really did look in absolutely mint condition, so I think I got a real bargain. I bought it accidentally. I've got way too many tents. I don't need this tent at all, but I put a bid of £200 on like 10 seconds ago and no one else bid, even though there was loads of people watching it, so I wasn't expecting to win it, but I have. And it's probably now my most expensive tent. It's a really serious bit of kit. So as it's getting dark, we'll just get it pitched. Now it does come with a Telemark bonus pack, which allows you to take the 4 little end poles out, put them together into one pole, guy line it off, and then you can use the door as a little porchway. So not something I ever imagined doing, but it's always useful. So it comes with DAC Featherlight Green NFL tent pole, which is a smart bit of kit, and you can see it's still got its original labels on as well. And then inside, this is the bag you can take if you don't want to take the outer bag. This is the pocket that it folds away into and crashes down pretty small. It is going to be that sort of length because it's got the 4 corner poles giving it some structure. You can remove them if you want to, but there's really no point. And it is actually an outer all-together pitch tent, which is quite useful because some of the Nordisk ones are in a pitch first, so not the best in this rainy country. It is still nylon, so it would need to be seam sealed to be fully waterproof. They recommend to seam seal it in wetter countries. I'm going to say Wales and the UK is a wetter country, but I've tested other Nordisk tents that are still nylon and I haven't seam sealed them, and they've actually been fine when I put them out in the garden overnight in heavy rain for a couple of days and stuff. So I don't know, you take your chances. I guess if it's absolutely driving rain, it may come in. But what a dinky tiny little tent. The tent pegs are really tiny and lightweight V pegs, so again, you might want to upgrade those if you're out in bad weather. This tent is wind tested to 40 miles an hour, so it's not going to be something you want to be necessarily summit camping in. It's not going to be the strongest tent in the world, but like a lot of Nordisk tents, it's going to be pretty robust. Well, not the best pitch in the world. Bit of a pain to put up actually. Getting the central pole through is a bit of a nightmare, and it's much bigger than I thought it was going to be. It seems to have quite a big footprint, so should be absolutely tons of space inside. It's now dark. There is a crescent moon out. Starting to see the valleys light up. Looks like mist over there. They don't forecast rain, so I don't think that's rain coming across, but it doesn't matter if it is because the tent not pitched brilliantly, but it's pitched. Yeah, really fine materials. I think this is Nordisk 15 denier seal nylon, so it's very, very thin, very, very light, but should still maintain quite a lot of strength. So yeah, it's getting cold. I've got a couple of cans of cider, so I'm just gonna get my gear in the tent and start chilling out and enjoy the luxurious space that's taken me almost zero weight in the bag and such a tiny pack size as well. So yeah, really serious bit of kit. Looks nice, looks nice. I do like my Nordisk gear. I've got some comfy stuff tonight, so I should have a really good night's sleep, really nice warm sleep. Good to be up this local hill again. It's such a nice location. I'm so lucky to live near these places where I come up with like 20 minutes notice and get into this kind of wilderness. So yeah, let's get in the tent. First impressions are, after a night's sleep in the Nordisk Telemark 2 lightweight, yeah, it's a decent tent in terms of space. I'd like it to be a fraction higher. I'm about 5'11", and I can just about sit up in here, but it's pretty close. You can probably see behind me that the outer has sagged onto the inner, so it's caused a bit of condensation above my head. Only a very small patch, and there's no water come through, but there's a lot of water on the inner layer on the outside there. So it's a seal nylon tent. Last night was foggy and damp and misty, and I can still see out now that it's foggy and damp and misty as well. So a lot of moisture coming across. The seal nylon on the outer is sagged and touched there, so I really should have gone out and tensioned that more to avoid that happening, but didn't bother. It was a little bit windy when I was trying to get to sleep last night, and the tent sounded really, really flappy. I mean, I didn't probably have the best pitch in the world, but yeah, it definitely sounded very, very noisy. Sounded like there was a lot of tent moving around. So again, it had probably sagged a lot in the condensation when the temperature dropped. So I should have gone out and retensioned it, but didn't. There is, however, plenty of room for one in here, and this tent does have the adjustable inner, so you can basically stretch the inner to give yourself more inner space or more porch space. But yeah, it would be a squeeze for two people in here. I mean, you absolutely could get two people in here, but I don't think you'd be particularly comfortable. You'd need pretty narrow sleep mats. I've just got a reasonably sized sleep mat, and it's taken over, you know, at least 60 to 70% of the space when it comes to the top and bottom, because the tent does taper off. So I wouldn't say you'd want two people to be in this tent, but for one person, tons of space, and the inner is actually pretty nice and taut. So I've got the Nordisk Svalbard 1 SI tent, and that's inner pitch first, and I find the inner, I find it really quite difficult to get consistent tension on the inner. It seems to be quite saggy, which you shouldn't really get with an inner pitch tent. This being an outer pitch tent, you're more likely to get a saggy inner, but the inner actually seems to be held really well, so you are maximising the amount of space because there's not a lot of sag, especially on this top bit. So that's really impressive. Another feature I quite like is that actually it's got a bit of mesh here and on the outer layer as well, so I can actually look straight through the mesh without opening up any zips or doing anything. I can see roughly what the weather's like outside to get a bit of an outside view, so I do like that feature. So you can really see the outer is completely sagging and just resting against the inner there, so yeah. Still 9 on tenths, you really should get out and adjust them and stuff, because when they start to get damp, they do really sag a lot. The nearest tent I've got to this one is the Van Gogh Helium Ultralight 2. Very similar design, single pole. That one's got a small pole at each end, just singular in the middle, whereas this Nordisk has got 2 at each end. And the main difference with the Van Gogh, it is a bit heavy. I think it's about 1.4 kilos versus about a kilo for this, but it does have 2 doors, so if the weather's quite changeable, you can always get out of a different door, and if there was 2 of you, it's a bit more practical with 2 doors. But I wouldn't say the interior space from memory of that tent is much different to this one. Maybe it's a fraction wider. I don't know. It'd be really interesting to do a comparison of those 2 tents. I managed to snag the Van Gogh Helium Ultralight 2 online on the Facebook Marketplace for 35 quid, and it's in pretty solid condition as well. So that's an absolute bargain of a tent. At £210, this was a lot more expensive, but the condition on this one is mint, really. Pitching it last night, I don't think it's actually been used before. The guy lines weren't even untied. One of them wasn't even tied onto the tent, so I suspect someone's just bought it, taken out of the bag, thought about using it, never got round to using it, and then sold it on. Thank you to those kind of people who buy tents and don't use them, and then sell them on for a lot less money, because it really helps some of us tent addicted enthusiasts out getting some new gear for not a lot of money. Decent little plastic hooks to tie both the inside and the outer doors, and you can see there's actually pretty decent space between the outer and the inner when it's not sagging, so it shouldn't really be an issue. And you can see there, that's the little hook that will do the outer door. Masks the condensation on the inner tent because it was so damp last night. Porch space, just got enough room for my boots, and there's a bit of room there. You could manage a tiny bit of cooking if you wanted to, but this is the adjustable nature here, so you can loosen and tighten this to pull the inner in and out, so you can completely adjust that. So you could definitely shrink the inner space right down and make a lot of porch space if you want to do some cooking and want to keep your stuff outside. But I'm always someone that prefers to keep all their gear inside the tent, really, apart from their boots, so I'm more than happy just to use the maximum inner space. And I rarely cook on a camp, because I rarely bother to take cooking gear, but I think because of the good height here, the ventilation above as well, you could definitely cook in this space, especially if you made it a bit bigger. Wow, the weather. It's supposed to be a really warm day today, the warmest day of the year in Wales so far, and it is grey, slightly misty, tiniest bit of moisture in the air, and a cold breeze, so yeah, not the best. So you can see the tent now, and you can see how much this end is sagging in the wind, how I've clearly not pitched that brilliantly. Just completely touching the inner there. So I've definitely got to get that sorted out on my next pitch. But yeah, I mean, it's not windy, it's a bit of a slight breeze, and it's moving around a fair bit. But yeah, it's a really smart tent, very light, spacious, ideal for one person. I've clearly got to get the pitch better. The door is not the biggest height-wise, so you can sit up kind of half in the tent, half out of the tent. Slug. This is how I spent a lot of my evening last night, having a couple of cans and a bit of food, just looking out over the Welsh valleys. So yeah, I've definitely got to do a bit of work on getting the inner and outer properly separated. I'll probably have to go on YouTube and watch videos about how to pitch his tent properly, but no, it's a very smart bit of kit, and for the weight and the pack size, the space you get is really incredible. So it's one of those things you do get what you pay for sometimes. The more you pay, the less that you get in terms of weight and size. But yeah, I had a really good night's sleep in it. So I see the Summit Trek free sleeping bag, a light or winter sleep mat, comfy and very warm. So yeah, I've definitely got all the comfy gear. So this year, just got to get out and do a few more longer hikes and camps, because that's what this kind of tent is for. If you're hiking a long way and you want to take a comfortable tent but not have the bulk and weight, this is the kind of tent that you want to take. But unfortunately, got to get home. It's only 20 to 8, so I'm going to have to pack away this tent wet and just dry it out when I get home. As usual, we've left no trace that I was up here last night. No sign of anyone else up here this morning either. It's not the most inspiring day to get up early and go up a hill. But glad I finally used this tent, because I bought it probably a couple of months ago now. Normally I buy tents and I get them straight out and pitch them and have a nose round them, but this time I didn't. It's been so rainy here in Wales the last few months. Like, the whole winter period has just been almost a complete write-off in terms of rain, so I just didn't fancy going out to a field and getting it soaking wet in mud just to pitch it. So I'm glad I've actually taken out for a quick overnighter. Definite work to do around the pitching, but you can't fault the pack size and the weight. 210 pounds or something that's essentially brand new. I think I've still got a really good deal there. Whether I keep it in the long term, I don't know. I do like the Van Gogh Helium Ultralight too, but it is a fair bit heavier and it's not in as good condition either. But who knows? Far too many tents, not enough time. There are some substantial views from here, but the Brecon Beacons are hidden in cloud. But it's still a nice place to come up for a wander in a camp. Bit of a different video this one, really. Just a very short camp and look at a new tent. So obviously there are probably a few videos on the Telemark too, which will give you a really in-depth look at all the various specs and sizes and stuff. But I'm 5'11", there was tons and tons of space for me in there. Head height was the only thing that was really a bit pushed, but in terms of lying out in the tent, absolutely fine, unless you've got a really thick sleep mat and you're really tall, in which case you might be making contact with your feet and your head on the inner as it goes up. But no, plenty of space for one. Like most two-people tents, I wouldn't class it as a true two-person tent. You'd be really cramped for space in there. Obviously, if you're with somebody, a partner, then if you were tucked up, that would be absolutely fine. But I think if it was just two of you going out, you're going to want a bigger tent than that. And there is actually a bit of a breeze up here, so it's actually a bit breezier than I thought it was. So the tent did okay in terms of a little bit of wind. It's not something I'd pick if I was going to go summit camping, I guess. I'd probably pick something a bit heavier, a bit stronger, a bit less flappy in the wind maybe. But given the pack size and the low weight, it's going to definitely be a tent I'll use again for long hikes when you want a nice, comfy, spacious place to sleep. And if the weather's a bit unpredictable in terms of whether there could be some rain, the fact it pitches all in one is really helpful for that as well. You're going to be able to get it pitched without getting any of your stuff wet nice and easily. And if I can get that central pole in a bit quicker next time, should be a really quick tent to pitch as well, because the four corner little mini poles are already inserted, so should be a really quick place to pitch if you needed to get out of the weather. Now it's only a very, very short walk back to the car, so I'll wrap up the video here. Hopefully you found it vaguely interesting seeing a different tent. I didn't even get up for the sunrise this morning. Luckily there wasn't one, but I would have still been nicely tucked up in my sleeping bag when it was happening anyway, so maybe just as well there wasn't really much to look at this morning. If you have made it this far, a huge thanks for watching as always, and maybe you'll catch me again soon, and maybe we'll be back out in the Nordisk Telemark 2 lightweight. Who knows? Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one.